Welcome back to the Investor Professor podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham, and this is episode 86. On today's episode, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do our first mailbag episode where I just basically take questions that have either come in through DMs or emails or text messages or phone calls I've gotten from either listeners, clients, and really just kind of go over some of the questions that I've received and kind of the things I keep hearing over and over again. So hopefully this will be helpful for you and provide a little bit more clarity on life, investing, reaching your goals, things of that nature. So get your mind right. Let's get to work. All right. Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. Like I said, today I'm excited to get to do a little mailbag episode here where we just take your questions, things that have been brought to my attention. And so we'll go through some of these. Thought it'd be kind of a fun time to do this episode. The market this past week, it was okay. The end of February is historically a pretty slow time of year for the stock market. And so we saw that again this week. And of course, the inflation question, the thing that's driving us all crazy is that this comes out every single week. So this week we had some of the Fed presidents say that they would have, would have blessed a 50 basis point raise in interest rates. And the market sold off based on that. That was Bullard from the St. Louis Fed. Now, the interesting thing about his comments is he doesn't actually have a vote this year, but he still moves the markets. As soon as that came out, markets sold off. So, we'll see. I mean, we're kind of getting to the point here where we're almost through earnings. We have a couple more earnings this week. We'll see how those go. That's going to be Home Depot, some of the consumer staple stocks. We had the data come out that consumers spent more in January than was expected. And so we get kind of this hotter inflation number, consumers still spending. But, you got to pair that with some of the other data, which is that a lot of consumers, yes, they're spending more money, but they're actually racking up a lot of credit card debt. And so, we got to see here, we're at all-time highs now for credit card debt. And so, how long can the consumers continue to do this? So the Fed, it's not an easy job. The market's now kind of pricing in one more rate hike. So we'll see where we end up. But again, I keep coming back, and this is one of the questions somebody asked about inflation is that, in 5 years, is it really going to impact the company that you're looking to invest in? So, all right, but we can talk more about the market later. Let's get into your questions. Let's get to what's on your mind. And so one of the first questions I get, and one of the, not first question I get, but one of the questions I get asked the most is, do you think now is a good time to invest? And before we go any further, I have to say this is for education purposes only. Talk to your financial advisor, talk to an advisor. Every situation is different. And so you really need to talk to somebody where they can talk about your specific needs and issues that are for you. And so I'll got to say that because this really is a specific question. Now, the question: Do you think now is a good time to invest? Well, I've been doing this podcast for over a year, and I think there hasn't been a single podcast where I haven't said, okay, now is not a good time to invest. And so, for me, if your time horizon is long and you have the perspective that you're going to keep investing, I think that any time is a good time to start investing. You eventually are going to have to start investing for your future, and nobody is going to come out and ring a bell and say, okay, now's the time for you to start investing. Now, I say this, and I'm 100% aware of the bias. There's an old saying that says, to a hammer salesman, everything looks like a nail. So what kind of investment person would I be if I didn't tell you that it's a good time to invest? I mean, if you have a long time horizon which is, that could be 3 years, 5 years, or whatever, 10 years. Yeah, I do think it's a good time to invest. I do think that markets will move up. Yes, there could be times where it goes down like last year, but you have to take advantage of those moments. And you can't just, be scared for 5 years and never make an investment. I mean, at some point you have to do it. So yes, I do think that, it's a good time to invest. Now we partner that with the second most asked question, which is, what should I invest in? Now, this is where it gets very, very complicated. And, I have to be very careful not to be making any type of recommendations. And this really does come down to your specific situation, what your goals are. And this is why when you talk to investment people, they never want to give you an answer when you ask this question. And they also never want to give you anything like very specific, because later on, like whether you do it or not, you'll be anchored to whatever they tell you, and you'll hold them accountable, and you'll base their ability as a finance person based on their answer to this question. Now, so I am going to give you an answer. I do think it's a safe one, but pretty much every single investor should have some exposure to the S&P 500. And so I would choose an ETF for that. I would choose the SPY, which is the S&P 500 ETF that tracks it. The S&P 500 is the most profitable, the 500 most profitable companies. And it also, if they bring new people in, they push people out based on their, their profitability. It automatically changes it for you. I believe right now, I'm not looking at it, I'm going off memory here, but I think it's around $405 a share for that S&P 500 ETF. You start there. You can then buy the DIA, which is the Dow Jones, tracks the Dow Jones. We've talked about this before. And then you can buy the NASDAQ ETF, which is QQQ. You buy those three and you basically have the entire U.S. stock market covered, right? And you could think about those as your pillars for your portfolio. But if you're looking to make an easy investment that you can start with, the S&P 500 for most people is a very good place to start. You don't have to worry about doing an individual stock and the risk associated with an individual stock. So this is a nice, easy place to start. So and I'm sure there's other ETFs you can look at, but the SPY is the one I've always used. So that's the second most asked question. And then we kind of have a live question here. It's kind of a twofer. How do you stay motivated, and what motivates you? So staying motivated, I would just say, I haven't always been the smartest person. My high school, you'll enjoy this. My high school guidance counselor or college counselor, told me to apply to other colleges because I probably wouldn't get into my first choice. And so I was never an A student, definitely more of an A, B, occasional C student. My undergrad GPA was a 3.000, if that tells you anything, in the engineering school. And so I've never been like the smart. I've always had to work hard, even in athletics. And so in athletics, I was never the most talented. And so I really had to learn how to be very good at hard work, perseverance, determination. And so my motivation really comes from that. Like, nobody's going to come by one day and turn you on. You got to find it within you at some point. You got to figure out, okay, how am I going to be motivated? And so, setting goals, going after those goals has always been fun for me. I don't look at it as success or failure. I really think of it as the process. And, John Wooden, the old basketball coach for UCLA, really helped me with his pyramid of success, which I've discussed. And in that pyramid of success, he really talks about how, you got to compete against yourself, and you got to try to become the best version of yourself that you can be. And to me, that has always kind of been a fabulous North Star for me. And I say that because in today's world, I feel like we're constantly comparing ourselves to where other people are at, or, we feel behind based on where others are at. I'll kind of talk about that here in a minute. We have another question coming up on that. But, but this, that pyramid of success really kind of made it to where I really just think about where I am. Am I doing better than I was yesterday? Am I achieving the goals that I've set out for myself? Do I hold myself accountable? And that really is, I don't know if it's motivation. I think it's more discipline. I think motivation goes away at some point. You can't really just stay motivated all the time, right? It really comes down to being disciplined. And it's like the challenge I set for myself this year physically, where I've ran 6 miles every 2 days. And I've continued to do that. That was a goal for January. And then I said, okay, I'm just going to keep it going. So the 6 miles, 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, I got some sit-ups in there, things like that. But really, one of the reasons why I did that goal is just so I don't have to make the decision. I know that many of y'all, this is very motivated people who listen to this podcast. I know a lot of you, can understand this, but when you're busy, you go into the gym and you're like, what am I going to do today? So part of this was for me just to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing every other day. And then on the other days, I'm doing light weights, things of that nature, but it really just kind of helped me not have to think about what I'm going to be doing. And so just kind of automating those things, but it's really more about discipline than it is motivation. Discipline lasts a lot longer than motivation does. And so for many of you, if you're looking for just different things, you have to find something that you want more than something else. So for me, I've been taking pictures of myself studying, getting up. Getting up in the morning is not easy for me. Like, it is not easy. It is a constant challenge. It is something that really, oh my gosh, I hate it. Like but I have to find something that I want to do more than sleep. And so I'm one of those people, if you're like me, like I have to set my alarm basically 30 minutes early from when I want to get up. Like, I'm the person who hits the snooze. Like it has constantly been a struggle for me to kind of get up my entire life. And so, finding something like studying for the CFA exam, like I want that more than I want to sleep. And so that's been a great anchor for me to get up. It's been nice to get an hour of study in before I start my day. I check on the market. And so it's really become a nice thing that I've been doing. But it's also, just the other night, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning thinking it was time for me to get up and study. So, this thing is living rent-free in my mind all the time, constantly feeling like I need to be studying. And so I really have to balance, quality hours. But, finding motivation, you have to keep thinking of things to keep pushing yourself. And I think it's, interesting. I've talked about it before, but like athletes, when you start having success, it's easy to kind of take your foot off the gas. And so you got to, and to be complacent and say, well, look at these things I've done. I don't have to do anything anymore. But you can't do that. I'm trying to build something, with like in my investment firm. I could have easily early on, I could have gone to go work for somebody. I could have gone to work for one of the big brokerage firms. It would have been so much easier to do that. But, now having my own thing, I don't have to worry about somebody changing things on me. It's just been, it was hard in the beginning, but it is so concrete now. It allows me the freedom, flexibility, and I don't have to worry about somebody changing things on me, my comp plan or rules or whatever. Like, it is my firm, so I get to make the decisions, and and there's a level of freedom that comes with that. But there was a lot of sacrifice on that, and on the beginning. And for me, that was the motive. For a lot of years, that was the motivation, was just having something that was my own, that eventually, if I want to pass it down or whatever, I'll be able to. So hope that helps on motivation. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but really motivation comes down to discipline. So if you remember that, discipline equals freedom. That's really all you need to know. One of the other questions that I get, this is kind of for more of the older people in the audience, is, I have kids, I need to save for college, but I haven't really started saving for retirement. which one of these should I start saving for first? And, this is going to be, I don't know if you'll like this answer or not, but it's my answer. You should start saving for retirement. You should start saving for retirement before you start saving for your kids' education. Especially this comes up a lot with people who are in their, let's say, mid-40s. Their kids are 10 to 13. They haven't saved for retirement. They haven't saved for their kids' college. It's all starting to pile up on them. And the reason I say this, and it's not because people don't love their kids, right? If you don't save for your kids' college, people say, oh, you don't love your children. It's not about that. The thing is there are things out there to help your children go to college. There are scholarships. There are grants. There are loans. There is nobody offering scholarships, grants, or loans for your retirement. And you put your child through. Most kids, they're not going to come back. They're not going to, they're not going to come take care of you. You have to take care of yourself because, let's say, your child goes through college. They have to take out some loans. Hopefully they've picked a major that's going to allow them to be able to pay those back. But also they have all those earning years ahead of them. They have all those earning years ahead of them. You don't have those earning years, right? You only have so many. So as a parent, I know it seems like a bad, thing to put yourself before your child. Most parents will always put their children ahead of themselves. But I'm telling you, when it comes to your retirement, you've got to save for your retirement because there are options available to your children to go to college. So do not sacrifice your retirement for your child's education. That is not something that is going to be beneficial for you long term. Okay. All right. So next question related on that is, where do I need to be savings-wise for retirement for my age group? Well, this is also a loaded question because I don't know what your lifestyle is. I don't know what kind of lifestyle you want in retirement. I don't know what retirement looks like to you. I don't know how long you're going to work. I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into this question as well. But what I did is I pulled up what the average retirement savings is by age. And I'll share that with you, and you can kind of take a poll here. And this comes from the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. This is from 1989 to 2019. But the average retirement savings by age, here we go. 35 and under is $30,170. 35 to 44 is $132,000. 45 to 54 is $254,000. 55 to 64 is $408,000. 65 to 74, the average retirement savings is $426,000. And then for 75 and older, it is $357,000. And that makes sense, right, on the 75-year-olds, because it's the 65 to 74 they've started actually spending down that money. And so there you go. Those are the averages. I would think that many of us listening to this are this is kind of an above average financially intelligent audience. But that's kind of where most people are. And so, you really have to be conscious and thinking about your own retirement. I've said it many times that, getting to 100,000 is kind of the hardest number for a lot of people to get. And that's really where you start seeing some momentum. If you're like me, just my journey got to 100,000. Then I decided to go to graduate school, spent a lot of that money on graduate school, got back to 100,000, decided to go to doctoral school. Starting my business, there was an opportunity cost with me starting my business, paying for all these degrees with no debt. on the belief that I would make more money later on to be able to catch up. I don't know. I mean, I still think about the time value of money. If I wouldn't have done those things, would I be better off? Maybe. I mean, it's, one of those things that haunts me, but I'm definitely appreciative of the place I am in now because I'm able to save a lot more than I would if I would have just kind of stayed in the same place and gotten raises of 2 to 3%. So everything has an opportunity cost, and you do have to think about those things. How do you prevent yourself from chasing different things? The group that I'm in, we call this the shiny object syndrome, where you start working on something and all of a sudden you switch. You start doing investments in one area and then all of a sudden you switch. Some of us, it's a struggle sometimes because you want to get to where you're competent in an area and then you decide to move or whatever. And I feel like so many of us, we get close to the light at the end of the tunnel. It's almost like the tunnel's curved, like the tunnel's curved and you're almost to the top where you can see the light, but we stop right before we get there because we think this thing to our left or to our right is going to get us there faster. And so you have to be very careful of that. And at some point, you got to be able to say, I'm okay missing out on it. You're not going to do every investment that you can possibly do. You're not going to be able to take, the correct job every time or make the correct investment or buy the right piece of real estate or whatever. But at some point, you got to be willing to say, okay, this is the path I'm on. And I'm okay with whatever happens. You got to be okay with what that maybe you missed out on something. This happens for me, this happens in stocks all the time. Like this happens all the time. And I'll have these investments that are going well. And then some name will pop up on a screen and it'll say that it's been up 20% and whatever. And it was a stock that I looked at and I go, man, I missed that one. But I did well with the investments that I had. And so you got to be, you're just not going to catch every single one. And so there's actually an investment bias for this. It's called propensity for maximization, which is where somebody looks at like, okay, if I would have sold this stock at the top and I would have bought it here at the bottom, I'd be doing so well. And so they're just constantly looking at when the perfect time would have been to enter said investment or said real estate or said whatever. And they start, holding themselves accountable to why didn't they do that? Well, if we could all, live life backwards, we would have a perfect, we would do it perfectly, but that's just not the way it works. So you have to be really careful to not let that or hindsight bias, thinking about decisions you would have made. You got to be very careful not letting those kind of creep in and influence your future decisions. So, and you have to just look at those lessons. If you're one of these, I'm going to use Tesla as an example, not saying it's right for you, but there's a lot of people over the years that they regretted not investing in Tesla. Well, for the last 6 months, it did nothing but get destroyed. And then you could have bought it at, 120. Now it's all the way back up to 200, but it was at like 300. So, the thing about markets being volatile is it gives you the opportunity to maybe get back in or invest in a company you wish you would have invested in. And so, that's where patient comes in. So, all right. So that's going to do it for our first mailbag. I'm excited to do these. I enjoy this. I enjoy answering questions that come in. So if you have questions that you want to ask, please send them in. You can message me. I get a lot of questions from LinkedIn. We get a lot of questions from the DMs on the Instagram page, the website. You can send them in whenever you want. I'll compile them and we'll do this again. So hope this helps you. I hope you have a great week. Don't mistake activity for achievement, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.